gentleman that I got to speak for us, he'd been coming into the room here, for a while, and he's always asked me, when can I speak? When can I speak? But Lenny's a good friend, and I've known Lenny for years, and I don't know, he's got a good message. I've heard him several times, and he always shakes things up a little bit. So without anything further, I give you Lenny from the Buck Chapel.
Who's next? Thanks, Neil. As many times as I've done this, I still get nervous, and so but I like to remind myself that this is a feeling that I was chasing all the time. Like my hair standing up on my arms and my heart's beating really fast. And I'm like, it's exciting, and it's exciting to be sober. And I remember just ripping and running for decades, trying to get to where I am right now. And I'm honored and grateful to be here Saturday morning. Thanks, Neil, for the honor and for always looking so good. You can't outdress Neil, so I said I'm not going to do it. As you said, my home group's Fox Chapel Tuesday night. We meet at 7:30, and many of you have been there, and you're all invited to come on out. It's a great meeting. It's a speaker meeting, and would love to see you out there. I have a sponsor. I talked to him on the way in, and he knows he's my sponsor, and he said, gave me some word. Well, because we know how that goes. He gave me some words of wisdom. He said, "Don't go over." And I'm going to be honest. Like every once in a while, I'll get carried away, because I think I have something so important to say, but I'm just going and right. And so I'm going to say everything that's important right now. Right, you got the hook, right? And I said it right. My sobriety date's October 5th of 2011. I have a sponsor. I have a home group. I've done the 12 steps. I read literature, and I try to be helpful. What I've come to learn after these years is that that's what everybody does, right? That's the secret handshake. And for any of you that are new or haven't been around for a while, that's what everyone that has any kind of sobriety does. You can write it on a postage stamp, right? That's what everybody does. Now, that doesn't mean that it's easy. And I have people in my life, especially bosses, who like to flip these two words, easy and simple, right? They'll say, oh, that'll be easy. And I can be pretty mouthy sometimes, and I'll say, I think you mean to say simple. Because easy is not what it is. But simple, yes. We do the 12 steps. We come here on Saturday morning, and we do the stuff that everybody does. And God willing, we get to stay sober. Anyway, I'll just give you some bio. I'm from Swissvale, Pennsylvania. I love to point because I feel like I know where it is. If it's that way, if it's not, someone usually disabuses me of the notion and says it's over there. But I'm one of 6 kids. My mom stayed at home and my dad went to work and had an unremarkable childhood by many measures. But I didn't feel like that was what it was when I was in the middle of it. In the middle of it, I was a small child full of fear. I was afraid of everything. And I remember going away to school for the first time and being terrified, right? Fear of people, fear of all the hundreds of forms of fear that's what makes us alcoholics. And I know this for a fact. Before my first day of school, I would have taken a drink if I could have. That's how uneasy I felt inside about doing that, about leaving the nest. And that wasn't an option for me. I've heard the horror story, right? There are tiny little children that are drinking before school. That's not my story. My story is that I needed to find another way to negotiate that fear and to feel like I fit in. And to that end, I did a lot of things that I'll refer to as my character defects. And they die hard with me, and I'm grateful that I have a program that I can work on them. But some of them hang in there. And my main one, especially back then, was I'm a people pleaser. I want you to like me, right? And to that end, I would do or say anything, even as a little boy. If you said you saw this movie last night, I saw it too. If blueberry yogurt's your favorite, it's my favorite too. I'm a yes man. If I think you'll like me because I like what you like, then I'll say I like it. Right? And it's a simple strategy, but it worked pretty good. What I didn't think about was the unintended consequence of that, right? I become a liar. I become a liar from this big, and I'm lying about everything, about stuff that doesn't even matter, right? I'm lying about what was on Wide World of Disney last night or whatever, you know. And to that end, I continue to do it for a long time. If any of you have ever told a lie, you know it takes 2 to cover 1 up and 4 to cover 2 up, and it just goes exponentially like there. So just imagine, and probably many of you can, the house of cards that I could build over the course of 40 years of ripping and running and lying, right? I didn't know what I liked when I got sober. I still thought if I thought you'd like me because I like what you like, I'll like it. And it's like I said, it's something that I work on today. I claim progress on that and some of my other character defects, but certainly not perfection. Developed a couple other character defects back when I was young, and I think we'll call them the isms or whatever. And I remember stealing money from my dad's dresser to give to other kids, right? Like, you didn't have to fight me for my lunch money. I was a kid that was going to give you money, right? It's crazy as that sounds. First of all, it works, right? Kids do like you when you do that. And but second of all, then it just starts it's just another lie, another layer of lies, right? So I'm a liar and a thief, and this is all when I'm just this big. So, but the lessons that I learned doing that, I carried and used like my bag of tricks for a long, long time. If you can imagine fast forwarding to when I'm the bartender many, many years later, and I'm giving you drinks. Right, I'm giving you things that aren't mine. I'm giving you, I'm commingling funds from the cash register to buy the next indiscretion or to get someone to like me to do, because I learned this lesson as a little child. Now I know right from wrong. At least I didn't act like I knew right from wrong, but I was raised nice, and but I strayed a long ways away from that. My home life was interesting. You know, when I got sober, as you're walking through the steps, and it came time to look at my resentments. First of all, I thought I didn't have any. I remember being at a meeting saying, I don't have any. And the old timers just laughed at me like, no. But as I came and saw you tell your stories and heard people share, I realized I'm full of resentment. And the number one resentment that I had, especially when I got up to my step work, was my father. I hated my father. He was a finger-biting screamer. He was a child of immigrants, and he was one of these guys, you better, you will, and you did, and you shall. And he would scream, and he could make me cry by yelling at me, and he often did. And I hated him. Right? I'm not proud to say that. I hated him. And he died before I got sober. So here's a predicament that put me in. They told me in no uncertain terms, right after I had started the process of becoming sober and joining up with you guys. And the number one reason for relapse is resentment. It's so far and away the number one reason that they don't even say what the number two reason is, right? And so here goes me. I like to think I'm pretty bright. I have a resentment against a dead guy, and I'm trying to get sober. And what do you do? What is it that you do? And when I was in treatment, they said, well, write a letter to your deceased father. And I wrote it, and I wrote the letter, and it was pretty hollow. And then they said, well, go read it at his gravesite. And I dutifully went out there and did it, and it just didn't do anything for me. It just was hollow. And I will mention right now that I'm a junior. I'm talking to a gravesite with my name on the tombstone. And I was like, that was a little creepy for me. And I remember calling my sponsor at the time, and just like I just wanted you, it didn't work, and I didn't do it, and it didn't do this. He stopped me in my tracks and said, hey, Lenny, did you ever think of taking care of your mother the way he would have if he was still alive? Don't you have brothers and sisters that could use a sober man in their lives? And it was like he hit me with a 2x4, because I'm so self-centered that I never thought about that. I couldn't conceive of that, but that's why you get a sponsor, right? You get a sponsor to help you work your way through the steps and how to figure it out, because they've been there. I think about this, not having a sponsor is like building IKEA furniture without the instructions. It can't be done. I mean, I couldn't do it anyway. So that was what my childhood was like, and I had an unfortunate incident where I was molested by one of my relatives as a preteen. I never said anything about it. You know, I shoved it down, I stuffed it down, I didn't talk about it, and they say we're as sick as our secrets. Excuse me. And I'm sure that contributed to some of my sickness. I want to stop before I go one step further and say that the things that happen to me aren't the reason that I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic because I can't stop drinking when I start. I totally buy into and I totally believe the fact that the phenomenon of craving takes over when I take a drink. But drinking made it easier to cope with some of these ideas and some of these things that had happened to me. Like I said, I never talked about it until I did my fifth step, and then it came out, and so I lived a long time just stuffing that feeling and stuffing those things down. And I can tell you something that, and all the while, I'm using the character defects to bend the world the way I need it to bend. I'm lying, cheating, stealing to get what I need from you. I'm doing anything I can to have an easier, softer life, and none of that's a very spiritual bunch of stuff. But here's what happened. When I would do those things, and I told you earlier that I was raised right? I knew right from wrong. Like I said, didn't act on it all the time, but I knew right from wrong. But when I did something that was clearly wrong, and I knew it was wrong, the guilt that I felt would bring the shame up from the things that had happened to me and just like smack me in the face. Like they were inseparable, guilt and shame in my life. And I didn't have a solution for that. I didn't know what to do. Like I said, I was good at stuffing it, and I was good at distracting, and I was good at making those things go away by, trying to do other things. And to this day, I'm still guilty of doing a million things. Like today, I talked to Neil last night, and he said, "You're still coming?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he texted me this morning, "Do I have to get somebody else?" But here's me, right? I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I drive for Lyft part-time. And I went and drove around for a couple hours and just try to make some money. And then I like to swim, so my swimming pool at the Bethel YMCA was closed. So I drove out to Farrell Family in North Hills to take a swim. Well, their pool was closed, but their outdoor pool was open. So 72 degrees, right? 72 degrees in the water. I was like, but I think I got time, right? I got to do, I'll do that and I'll get here, and then next thing you know, here's Neil's text. But I'm guilty of doing that. I'm guilty of, and I didn't realize that the little bit of OCD that I suffer from was something that was always there, but I was making it go away with all the drinking and the such. And when I got sober, all of a sudden, some of these issues that I have, come forefront, and I have to deal with them. I will say that the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous has helped me tremendously. I also have outside help. I see a therapist, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm a believer, and I go to church, and I try to do whole lots of things to round out my spiritual life. But nothing is more important, and nothing works better for me than being with you guys. And so I'm grateful to be here. So here comes my first drink. My father, who I told you about, who was a finger-biting screamer, was the breadwinner of the family. And it used to be fashionable for that guy bring the boss home, right? To bring the boss home and introduce him to your wife and kids. And it's a career move. They feel sorry for your 6 kids or whatever it is. And then Dad brings us down like The Sound of Music to sing a song for this guy, right? So come down, and we're prancing down the stairs in clothes made out of curtains. I might be making that up. But then sing a song for Mr. Jones, and it's mortifying. You're doing this, and then they shuffle you off the bed, and the party starts. And here's, as kids will do, I'm looking over the balcony at the party that has started, and my dad, who I told you is this guy, all of a sudden he's got his arm around his boss and a cigar in one hand, and they're laughing and jacking it up and having a rat-pack moment. And I think it doesn't make any sense, right? Where did that guy go? But I figured it out. They were drinking. And I like to think I'm bright, but I was aware of drinking. I saw Foster Brooks on TV, right? The cartoon characters with bubbles over their head and they're stumbling around, but I never saw what it really did to somebody that I knew. When it took somebody and changed his personality like that, and all of a sudden I had got a plan. I'm going to get some of that. So when the party was over, I walked downstairs and I poured some Gordon's gin in a Pepsi bottle and I took it with me to school. I told you what I'm like at school. I'm the kid that's giving away my lunch money so that you'll like me, and now all of a sudden I'm bringing something to the party, right? And trust me when I let everybody know, right? And all of a sudden you can hear the buzz going around the room. Lenny got something, right? And all of a sudden I'm somebody. I haven't even put it to my mouth yet, and I've become somebody, right? And that's how I know the fight still goes on, because I haven't had a drink since October 5th of 2011, and there's still a voice in my head that wants to say, oh, only idiots pay their taxes, that stop sign's for losers, she'll never know you cheated on her, blah, blah, blah. There's a voice, right? And then if I don't stay spiritual, and if I don't work my steps, and I don't keep up with that important part of my heart, those voices are going to continue to be there, and the fight continues. Fortunately, like I said, we have the spiritual principles that are attached to every step. So when you're saying you're working your steps, I think the world is my spiritual gymnasium. The traffic jam on 279 this morning was a beautiful opportunity for me to practice patience. Right? And it's like any other muscle. If you don't practice it, it's not going to happen. And I remember my dad used to talk like that, and I was like, shut up. I hated that guy. And then I took the drink. And I did get taller and faster and better looking and smarter, and it was magical. It was amazing what had happened to me. And I didn't become an alcoholic that day, but I found something to add to the bag of tricks. You know, the lying, cheating, stealing, and all the other character defects that I was throwing around. And I lived and existed like that for a long, long time. High school was pretty quick and easy for me, and I used to think I was smart, but I think it was just, I was blessed. I was blessed with a nice family situation where we talked about things and we were exposed to things, and education was something that was valued in my family. Bless you. And when it came time to leave and go to college, I had no plans. I had no idea, absolutely no idea what to do. But I knew what I wanted to do: get out of the dungeon, where my dad and the tyranny that I was living under. And so I decided to go to college, and I have no idea. Like, my friends are going because they're going to architecture, and they're going this, and and I have no idea. I picked the school, and there used to be a book called the Barron's College Book. It had every college in it, and it'd say, like, where it is, how much it is, and the bottom line was the ratio of women to men. And that's how I decided what college I was going to go to. I mean, first it had to be far enough away that my parents couldn't visit me, but most importantly was, where am I going to go that I'm sure to find true love? Right? Now, they told me this in treatment, and I believe this 100%. Our emotional maturity stops when we start using, right? So I'm about a 12-year-old picking college, and all I can think about is, where are the girls going to be? Where are the girls going to be? Right? And so I picked a college just outside, in Ohio, and did what would become my first geographic cure. And when I got there, I didn't join the soccer team or the debate society. I joined the guys getting drunk behind the gym before the dance. And here's what I learned, and I learned it from you guys, what it means to have a geographic cure. And I'll just sum it up real fast. Wherever you go, there you are. And when I got to Ohio, I was there, and I was a full-blown, or at least mostly full-blown alcoholic with other issues. A couple things that I didn't know, and my life has been a series of I didn't know that, or you don't know it till you know it. And what I didn't know was that when you go to college, they don't care if you go. Like, I didn't know, so when I didn't go on Monday, I thought, they're going to be mad at me, I can't go Tuesday. When I didn't go Tuesday, there's no possible way I could go Wednesday. How could I go Wednesday if I didn't go Monday and Tuesday? And all of a sudden, I just stopped going. And I like to say it this way: I was finished with college in like 3 weeks. Right? That's it. But I didn't think it out very clearly because when I went home for a break, I didn't realize that sitting in the rocking chair in my dad's arms were the grades, right? And so you can see how this plays out. But I remember 2 different ways. I remember how I used to think about it. And I used to think, he was screaming and yelling and biting his fingers and saying, "You better, you will, and you shall." And as a sober man, having been here and heard you guys tell your stories and been able to step a little bit away from what I really think, it was something way more like, "Hey, Lenny, let's buckle down and get this straightened out. Let's get this, let's get you back on your feet and pull up your bootstraps," or whatever it was like that. But I'm not hearing that because I'm so full of resentment towards this man at that point. I'm only hearing like Charlie Brown's teacher. I don't hear anything. And so I decided, here's what I'm going to do. I don't need to follow your rules. I'm going to move to Florida. So listen, the day I turned 18, okay, I got it on an airplane, a one-way ticket to Jacksonville, Florida. Why did I pick Jacksonville, Florida? Because the U.S. Census book says in black and white the ratio of women to men in Jacksonville, Florida. This is the kind of decisions that I make, right? And I get down there, and I found an apartment I couldn't afford. I found a job that I didn't like to go to, didn't have pay enough to pay the bills, and I didn't like to go to work anyway. So in a few short weeks, months, I was on the phone with my mother, and if you can imagine the people pleaser on the phone with his mother in this situation saying, "Well, if you really want me to come home, I will." Because here's what I'm thinking. Cable TV, car, right, warm, money, and I'm willing at that point to agree to any terms of surrender they're going to say. I don't care what it is. I'm going to say, sure, whatever. You're going to go back to school. Yep, that's great. I'm going to go to school. I'll enroll at Pitt, whatever. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And so I went back, tail between my legs, and enrolled in a couple of classes at Pitt. And here's what, when I think about the expression, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And then when you're doing your step work, they encourage us to look for the pattern. Well, I was unable to see the pattern then, but now with some time behind it, I'm able to understand that the pattern's pretty simple, right? I'm driving to school in my mom's car looking for where to go for these classes. My heart's beating out of my chest like a drum, just like the tiny little boy in kindergarten, just like the first day of college, just like the first day of high school. It's exactly the same. Nothing has changed, right? So I'm driving around the block, around the block, around the block. But if fight or flight kicks in, I only have one move, and that's down the hill to the bar. Right? Around the block, around the block, around the block, down the hill to the bar. Because that's what I know, and that's what I do. And pattern reemerges, right? Don't go to school on Monday. Can't go Tuesday. They'll be mad at me. Didn't go Wednesday. Now all of a sudden I'm done. I failed out twice, and as fast as you could possibly fail out of class, I did. And this time my dad did say something way more like, "Get out, get lost." And that was when I basically chiseled my resentment on the tombstone. I don't need you. I'll never need you. I don't this. I can do this on my own, right? What do they call it? Terminal independence. I can do it. Because I like to think, the egomaniac in me likes to think of myself as some combination between James Bond and MacGyver, right? Right? I can figure this out. Right? I'm 18 years old, so now I think I'm too old to go to college. I failed out twice, and I thought, I'm done. Over the last 10 years, I've taken class, and I go to some of them. But I'll figure this out. And so I went to make my way in the world and got a job in the food and beverage industry. I got a job as a bartender. Talk about the mouse guarding the cheese. Like, if there's a job I shouldn't have got, that was it. But I found quick successes in that industry and lots of people just like us, right? And we could find each other in a coal mine with our eyes closed. You find someone that likes to play like we play. Yes, we know each other. We know we're all here. And I had some successes in that industry for some time, and I was given opportunities, and I used to think they were of my own creation, and the reality is that I was given opportunities, and I basically squandered them all the time. Even though I worked my way up to some pretty nice situations, I never stopped to think of how or why I got there. When we read the preamble, it says, alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. And that's almost too cute for me. And I don't mean to, I don't take issue with that statement. But I just say, when I hear those words, I say to myself, every single time, progressive, chronic, and fatal, because it is those things too. And so at this point, the progressive nature of my disease is such that I need more and more and more and more. And to get more and more and more, I need to be willing to do more and more and more things that violate my ethic code, that exploit my character defects, and on and on. And here's what happens, right? I know it's wrong. I feel guilty. The shame for what happened to me comes back up. I'm living in guilt and shame in an endless cycle that won't go away. From the successes that I had early in that industry, I basically tumbled right back down the ladder of success from having been in some of the most wonderful positions, the best I could possibly ever get probably, and I squandered it in every way you can imagine to where I ended up back as the daylight bartender in a depressed Steeltown bar. If you're familiar with the industry, you know daylight bartender is the elephant graveyard of our industry. That's where you go to die. And I took the job from a guy who died. And I had no problem taking it. He didn't need his job anymore. And he died as a direct result of this disease. And I stepped right into his shoes. This is perfect, right? And I remember my friends and family coming in and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. Why would you work here? And here's another thing that I believe. I believe denial isn't me lying to you. Denial is me lying to me. So when they would say, like, Lenny, why would you work here? I'd say something like, well, it's close to home. Now, I want you to read the subtext to when I say that. When I say it's close to home, the bouncing ball says, doesn't have a car. Why wouldn't you work in one of those hospitals or hotels that they just built in downtown Pittsburgh? I don't want to wear a tie. That's for suckers, right? Here's what the bouncing ball says to that. Could never pass a drug test. Right? So here's where I am. My world's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Right? Here's what a normal day for me would be like. Go to the bar for a 7 o'clock shift. I'd get there at 5 o'clock in the morning because you have to set the bar up, right? To set the bar up, all that means was turn the TV on and pour myself a glass of vodka. Because I'm detoxing every morning, and so I'd get there at 5 o'clock, start my ritual, and go into the litany of things that I had been doing for my whole life. Right, some pretty young thing comes in, and I'm sure she's going to fall in love with me if I give her quadruple shots of vodka for the next 3 hours, right? And to pay for my indiscretions, right into the cash register and to the sedan delivery guy, right? But here's what happens. Like I said, the guilt and shame comes back. At the end of the day, I'm basically annihilated, trying to find my way home so I can get up and come back down and do it again. That's the insanity. And I got a couple of other definitions of insanity that I heard recently and I love to share is joining a 12-step program and not doing the 12 steps is another definition of insanity that you can just keep in your back pocket if you never need that, because I've seen that happen. So I got great news, though, on the insanity front. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the beauty of this is that I learned and I believe, and these would all just be things that I believe. I'm not here to preach or to teach, but I believe that there's another side to that coin. And the other side of that coin is that if I do the same thing over and over again, then I can't expect the same result, right? If I have a sponsor and I have a home group and I do the 12 steps and I go to my meetings and I read the literature and I try to be helpful with other people, it's highly likely that I'm going to be sober tomorrow morning. Right, and how do I learn that? I learned it from people like Joe, right? I mean, day in, day out. My first meeting, I went to Castle Shan. There he's sitting there. Danny's sitting there, right? Mr. Bill, all these people. So many of you that I've known for years. That it's not mysterious. It's not like a secret handshake. This is just what everybody does. But I had to learn that, and so here's the last day, right? I'm walking to work because I can't find the car. I can't find the car because I drink to oblivion. I drink to oblivion because I can't stand to be in a moment. Every moment's intolerable. Every moment's so full of guilt and shame and despair and fear and anxiety and all the horsemen. Right? I got way more horsemen than the book says. And I get there and I open the door and there's the owner standing there, shaking his head, going, "Sorry, Lenny." He had to know for a long time what I was doing to him. But I think like our friends and family wanted to believe that I was going to be able to get my stuff together, figure it out. And that wasn't going to happen. I needed help. And he said, you're fired, was the first thing he said. And then he offered me a ride home and gave me a ride home and stuck his hand out and said, Lenny, get help. And I said, you too, babe. I know, I'm such a... Listen, I'm not proud of any of this, but it's true. And so, all right, like I said, James Bond, MacGyver, I'll figure this out. I can figure this out. And so I get home, and my home life, I'll touch on it real quickly, is that it followed the same path as my work career, right? I didn't get fired from work a lot. I quit before you could fire me. I quit when I figured out you knew that the money was funny, there was inappropriate relationships happening between the staff, whatever it was, and I would say, I'll find a better job. And like I said, I never found a better job. Well, the same thing was true with my relationships. I meet and fall in love with some unsuspecting young person, young lady, and we're going to be in love forever. This is going to be forever, and I'm going to get you that ring for your birthday and all this stuff like that. And sooner or later, it becomes obvious that I'm not fulfilling this bargain, right? I learned this the hard way. Like, if you promise a ring for Valentine's Day, you might get to the next Valentine's Day before you get your walk-in papers, but it's not happening if you don't come through. And I would always have the excuse, well, the dog ate it, I got jumped on the well, whatever. I'm that guy that could make this up on the hat. But just like the job situation, I'd quit you before you fired me. And I'd say, you know what? I'm going to find someone who loves me for the man that I am and not for who they wish I was. And walk, right? And so I end up here, fired from my job, back to the house where I'm now living in the basement of a house of one of these poor women that I had taken such advantage of. And she took pity on me and let me sleep in the basement of the house. Now, I had put the down payment on this house with this woman. And then in the years coming after that, I squeezed every penny back out of her for some financial scheme I'm not going to describe to you at AA meeting. But I had this idea I was going to make a lot of money. And she took pity on me and let me live in the basement of the house that used to be mine. Right, I got laundry up to here, and I got cigarette butts up to here, and I'm dressing out of the thing, but I'll figure it out. I can figure this out. And all of a sudden, and this is the audio-visual part of our presentation. Hold your ears for a second. That noise. You guys know what that noise is. That's the worst noise in the whole world. Right, so I peel back the garbage cans that are on the window, garbage bags, and I'm like, because who is it, right? It's the scariest thing you could ever imagine. Is it the police? Is it a jilted lover? Is it some child? I don't know that. Whatever it is. Whatever it is, I don't want to see it. But I peek out and I open the thing and I see it's my younger brother. And like a good alcoholic, I throw the door, hey, Jeff. Right? And he's looking at me like he's looking at a ghost. He sees a dead man walking and he's like, what's up? And I said, nothing. I can't really talk right now. I'm unemployed and unemployable. I said, I got this thing I got to do. He had to know. He had to have been contacted by my boss and to try to help me. And I said, tomorrow. And he said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. So here's my last drink, right? I flipped the house. If you've ever flipped the house looking for goodies, every drawer comes out, every pants pocket goes in and out, every rug's upside down, every door jam's pulled off, everything. You look everywhere for something. Here's what I found. Nickels, dimes, quarters, M&Ms, French fries in the couch. That's all there is. That's all that's left of my vast empire. And that's how I bought my last drink. I went down to the state store, minus the M&Ms and French fries, and I dropped it on the counter and said, what can I get? And I worked as a bartender. I owned my own bar for years. When that guy walked in and did that, I said, loser. And that's how I bought my last drink. And I got a bottle of Smirnoff, a little tiny, or some pint of something. I'm like, not a lot of energy. And I took it home, and I'll figure this out. And I downed it, and my shoulders dropped, and I'll figure this out. I will figure this out. Well, now day turns to night, and night turns to day, and I don't even have enough to get that. And so when my brother comes back, I'm detoxing in a bad way, right? The delivery guy's not coming to your house when you're unemployed. Just heads up on that. And my brother came and he said, Lenny, what's up? And I said, now here goes. I'm looking at two doors, right? I'm a liar. I can easily say it's a misunderstanding, right? It was a thing. Because I'm thinking, if I tell him the truth, I run the risk of him saying, you loser, stay away from my family, your mother, your friends, you piece of whatever. Or what he said. And I said, Jeff, I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. And he said, let's get you help. And believe me, that was the leap of faith that I never could have taken. That's God doing for me what I wouldn't do for myself. That's a thing that I lacked sufficient courage and humility to do, but I did it. And then I proceeded to basically puke a fifth step over the poor guy. I told him about everything, about the abuse and about the lying, the cheating, the stealing, everything that I had. And this poor guy's eyes like this, right? But he cared enough to say, all right, let's get you help. And there were 2 places you can go on October 5th of 2011. And the first one's Western Psychiatric Institute. And you already know enough about me. I can't go there. What would the neighbors think if Lenny was in Western Psych? Well, what were they thinking when I was puking in the bushes in front of their house or crashing my car into their car in their driveway? Right? Getting dragged out of Johnny Eagle in handcuffs. Like, I can't go to Western Psych. What will the neighbors think? Right? It's a hallelujah moment. Hallelujah. If they do that. And the second place was Mercy. And I told you, I'm easier, softer way guy. Mercy is a Catholic hospital. I'll go there. That sounds nice. Right? But fresh on the heels of telling the truth and it working out, I go up to the lady at the front desk of Mercy's in the emergency room, and I told her the exact nature of what was wrong with me. I didn't give her the BS version. Like, if you guys know what a credit evaluation is, if you get a DUI and they sit you in front of somebody, they ask you, how much do you drink? And your friends say, tell them half as much. And half as much as we drink is insane. Right? But I told this lady the exact nature of what was wrong with me. I told her about medication and preparations and all these things. And I think I'm going to impress her with my resume. And she says, sit over there, honey. Now, I'm detoxing in a bad way, right? I'm in a bad way. And my blood pressure is probably world record. But they didn't have a bed, or I understood that they didn't know exactly what to do with me. But it was either illegal or unconscionable for them to let me go. And they found a way to send me up to the 6th floor. And I had a medically supervised chemical detox on the 6th floor of Mercy. I went to my first meeting, and big tables like this in a square. I was sitting there in a hospital gown with my butt hanging out. I was dunking graham crackers and apple juice. And I said, my name's Lenny. I'm an alcoholic. And then we proceeded to talk about whatever the reading was, right? And we have a regular meeting. And all of a sudden, the gift starts giving right there. Because all of a sudden, I didn't care if you watched the Wide World of Disney or if you like blueberry yogurt or if the Pirates are your favorite team. I was going to say what I felt about this, and not spiteful or not mean, but I was just like, I'm going to say what I really feel. And that's a gift that has been giving and giving since I got sober. And then all of a sudden, the guy across the room said something. And it hit me like a laser beam in my heart. He said things I knew to be true in my heart and I didn't have words for. And this isn't a detox, right? So this is a good way to start, though, because all of a sudden I seen the regular exchange that we do, right? Someone across the room is going to say something to floor you, and you didn't even know what to say, and it's true, right? And you're like, whoa. And then it's your turn, and hopefully they'll hear something, right? And meeting after meeting after meeting, right? Going on 15 years of this. It happens every time I go to a meeting. Someone's going to say something, and it's going to have an effect on me, and I love that. Well, after 7 days of that, that beat my old record by 5 days. I'm like, all right, that felt like a tune-up. And if I had been released to my own devices on that day, I'd be dead today. I promise you that. A van came and picked me up and took me into a treatment facility in Aliquippa, and I spent the next 28 days there. So I go to the intake person there. But now I have a story, right? They said, what's your story? Is basically what they said. What's your story? And I said, the story, it has been developed. There is a narrative that has been happening, and send me upstairs to the 3rd floor with a bunch of people, and the same thing happens again, right? People that I'm sure I wouldn't like, I listened and I coexisted with, and they said things that changed my life, and I got to do that for 28 days. And I remember when we were in there, they said, they took us to outside meetings, and they said, get guys' phone numbers. Now, when you're a new person and you hear someone say that's like this, no. So I came back and told my counselor they wouldn't give me their number. Now, if that's not the stupidest thing you could ever say to your drug and alcohol counselor, I can't imagine that there's something stupider to say to them. And he looks at me like this, you're going to die. That was the look he said. And if I'm not willing to ask you for your phone number and hold your hand in the church basement in Monaca, it's not likely I'm going to do the next thing they asked me to do, and that was get a temporary sponsor. Right? That's just, I don't even get that. I don't understand. So here's how AA reached into my life and saved my life, okay? My brother who helped me get this journey started, friend's brother is in AA. That guy called his sponsor and said, my brother's friend's brother is in Aliquippa. Can you help him? Don't get your sponsor this way. This is a God moment, right? And this guy called the facility and said, my name's David. I would like to help Lenny. Here's what I heard. First round draft pick. You picked me. I'm 6'2" out of Swissville, Pennsylvania. He's weird, right? So I graduate with honors. And he said, meet me down at the coffee side, trendy side coffee shop. And I put on my Harley jacket, my Doc Martens, and I slick my hair back, and I go walking in like, and David's sitting there where Neil is, and he goes, what the? Sit down and tell me the truth and don't lie. But I have a truth now. I can at least bring him up to speed with what I've told you guys. And he said, okay, fine. Get in the car. And I got in the car with him, and we picked up Pete, who's got like 50 years now, and Roy, who's since passed away at about 40, and Frank, who passed away with about 50. Like there's 200 years of sobriety and my 28 days in the car. I'm bringing something. And we went to Sharpsburg Tuesday night and walked down the stairs there at Sharpsburg Tuesday night, and Lou P was given his lead with like 48 years in Lou, and I thought I struck gold. Right? It was like Art Donovan or something. I was watching and I'm like, this is great, you know? And here's what I think. Most people don't land on their feet like that. God was doing for me what I could not and would not do for myself, and put me in the mix of these guys from Castle Shannon that basically saved my life. And we went and traveled around, and David, my sponsor, said, well, we need to get you involved in the steps. And I did the steps the way he did his steps, the way Pete did his steps, and the way the big book says to do it. And he said, we need to get you involved in service work. And I said, okay, sure, that sounds great. He said, we need an assistant supply guy. The assistant supply guy makes sure the supply guy got sweet and low, okay? He said, do you think you can handle that? Here goes me. What? I'm a restaurant, $1 million. I have my own. I couldn't handle it. We're driving down Castle Shannon Boulevard before the meeting like this. We're on a sweet and low. I couldn't handle it. Since then, service has been a huge part of my recovery. When I was in inpatient treatment, somebody brought therapy dogs in, and I said, I'm going to do that when I get out. You know, and like I'm going to climb Mount Everest and marry you and finish college and right all the things that I think I'm going to do that are never going to happen if I didn't get sober. But I did get sober, and I did get a therapy dog, and I've been taking the dog. I'm on my second dog now. Right, I've been taking this therapy dog there every 28 days for like the last 12 years. And I get to go up in that same room where I sat with all you guys around the table, and I get to tell them, I sat right there. I've been blessed in recovery to go back to Mercy's Detox and sit there and watch, and people say crazy stuff in Detox. I was there. And I've been blessed to do that. I just finished with a couple quick things. I got a job, and I remember when I was in treatment, they said, they have vocational counseling. They said, well, why don't you think about getting a job in a King's Family restaurant or a hospital? And I'm like, I was on TV. Like, what are you kidding me, right? And I got a job as the chef in a hospital. And they liked me so much, they gave me the combination of the safe, right? They trust me to prepare meals for people that are immunocompromised, that, like, you can't give them an extra shot of vodka and hope they're going to fall in love with you. Right? That's not how that works. And they like me so much they put me in their TV commercials. And believe me, if you would have seen me on TV 14 years ago, I'd have been in an orange jumpsuit with my hands behind my back. You'd have learned my middle name. Leonard Fred Picone. And my brother, who helped me get sober, got and grabbed me one day and said, why don't you take your nephews swimming? I started to cry. He was going to let his kids go in my car with me. If you'd have put your kids in my car back then, they'd put you in jail. They would put you in jail. And so life has been so wonderful, and I've been so blessed. I tell you what I think is a funny story. I'm walking into a store. I have my chef gear on, and I'm walking in, and I see someone walking out dressed like me. So I I turn to the side to let this person in the door, and that person turns aside to let me in the door, and I'm like, hey, it's all right, you know, we're bros, you know. And I go to hit the door, it was me. It was my reflection. But I liked him. I met me out in the world, and I liked him. Right? That's what this program's giving me. That's what happens when you do the 12 steps and try to live some kind of spiritual life and you know, try to give back. You know, I'm so glad and honored to have been asked to speak, and you're the best. Thank you all very much.
All right, we are going to do the fee for membership, the money for that office for the central office, New York office. I'll take the running off.
It's what hurt.
Okay, could I have the report?
12-step program. Help us